He is a bass fishing Hall of Famer. He is a 16-time Classic qualifier, a 9-time Bassmaster winner. Oh golly, it's Shaw Grigsby. This week, I'm
Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
So here we go again. Welcome one, welcome all, friends, family, freeloaders, fishing freaks, and of course you, my humpers. Happy hump day to all of you, and welcome into the Awkwardly Honest Fishing Podcast that goes by my last name, which is Mercer. This is the 224th edition of the Mercer Podcast, and I hope wherever you're watching or listening from that life is treating you well. God willing, as you watch this, I'm either on my way to Michigan or already in Michigan for the 8th stop of the 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series. That's right, the Elite Series is finally back in your life after a bit of a summer hiatus. Really flew past. It flew past, but I'm excited to get back to the Elite Series. We got two great events to finish the season. Lake St. Clair this week. 2 weeks from now, we'll be in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it all gets decided there. All your requalification, all your Angler of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Classic qualification, it all comes down to these last two events. And at the beginning of the season, I'm assuming most of you are no different than me. You just want it to be a fun conclusion, a tight race, and it's definitely going to be that. What an Angler of the Year race we got going on. We have the top three separated by just 13 points and the top two separated by 2 or 3 points. Leading it is Jay Shakurit. Trying to chase him down is Chris Johnson, the reigning and defending Angler of the Year champion. He's trying to become the 4th angler ever to win back-to-back Angler of the Year titles. And in third place, just 13 points back, is Trey McKinney, which is incredible because what a season. I mean, he had a train wreck at the beginning of the season. To recover and to be in third place, just 13 points back, is truly amazing. But the guy who's been in control and seemingly for quite some time now is Jay Shakurit. Can he seal the deal? He's going to get to close it out in front of his home state crowd in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So, it's going to be a fun race. It's going to be an exciting race. And like I said, as a fan, that's what you want. At the beginning of the season, you just want it to be exciting when it all finishes up. And two great venues, Lake St. Clair, and then, of course, La Crosse, Wisconsin. So we are going to go from giant smallmouth to some of the most insane footage we ever get. La Crosse is, frog eats cheese. I don't mean the cheese you eat. I mean the cheese that the bass live under. It's what I love to see about bass fishing. So it's going to be a fun conclusion. I challenged Jay to get an actual polka band to bring him out in La Crosse. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm hoping. Kind of throwing it out here right now. If you're a polka band and you're looking to get a little bit of notoriety in the bass fishing world, hey, holler at Jay Shakurit, our Bassmaster. We'll get you to bring him out right there in La Crosse. You're all welcome to join me this week in Michigan. Would love to see you. And I've got good reasons for you to join that tournament because we have two very special guests. Number one, Z-Train. That's right. Mark Zona, my brother from another mother, will be with us Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He's not just a hologram. He's going to be there doing coverage with myself and Kyle Jesse. So I always look forward to hanging out with Z. Make sure you come by and say hello to him. He's a hugger. So make sure you give him a hug. Not just Zona. We also have Travis Pastrana is going to be in the house. That's right. That name should be familiar to many of you from Nitro Circus, from motocross, from, well, just any activity that you can risk your life. He's pretty much done them all. And he's going to be at the Elite Series event this week because it is It is sponsored by Yamaha, but it's also sponsored by Yokohama, and he is a Yokohama sponsored pro, so he will be there for that. So make sure to swing down and say hello to all of us. It's always great to meet you, and after you've met those guys, find me and say hello to me, because I always love shaking the hands of the fine folks who will spend a little time listening to this each and every week, and allow me to call them humpers, because, I mean, when's being called a humper ever been a bad thing, right? I mean, so be a proud humper, and I'm thankful for all of you. Other Bassmaster stuff going on. Just released the officially unofficial earlier this week. It's been a few weeks since we've done one, but check that out on Bassmaster.com. We get with 4 different anglers, and we look at the 2026 Elite Series schedule that just got released. We get their true and honest feeling of where they're going, where they're going to be competing, where they would like to go in the future. We have some really cool conversations. So make sure to check that out on Bassmaster.com and the other socials as the week goes on. It will appear. Now on to this week's show. We have an incredible guest. He is an icon of this sport. He's been a very busy man the last week, really. I had no idea when we recorded this that he was going to do every single fishing podcast there is to do, but so he should, because he's freaking Shaw Grigsby, and when he announced his retirement, he deserves to be shown the reverence that he deserves. And so he's been on a bunch of shows, but I think we have a very cool conversation with him. And as I said, he is an icon of this sport. Whether you're a fan of what he's done as a competitor, whether you're a fan of him because of his 20-year run as a TV show host, whether you're a fan of him because of the innovation he's brought to this sport, Shaw Grigsby is truly the term salt of the earth, one of the good guys. I mean, let's be honest, the world could use a lot more Shaw Grigsbys, and I'm thankful that this industry has him, and I'm thankful that I get to call him a friend. And I'm thankful that he is this week's guest. Without further ado, let's travel all the way down to Gainesville, Florida, and hook up with the one and only Shaw Grigsby. Shaw Grigsby, it's good to see your face.
Dave, it's great to be here with you, man. Always good to see you.
When I knew we were going to record, I just thought about kind of a lot of memories that I've had with you over the years, whether it's been, working events, whether it's been working with sponsors, different. And honestly, the one thing that came to my head is just, you're always smiling. You're just a very, I think I saw a quote a while ago, and I'm a weirdo for quotes. And the quote said something to the effect of, people will forget what you said. People will forget how you said it, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And Shaw, you've always made me feel freaking good.
Well, thank you, Dave. I have bad days, but I can tell you, it's when you make a living fishing. I mean, this truly is such a great and unique sport that we're able to make a living in. And when you make a living fishing, hard not to smile. You know what I mean? It truly is. It's wow, that's all I could say. The people are fantastic. The challenges that are around professional fishing, meaning everything from figuring the fish out each and every minute and going along in your tournament day, and then all the rest of it with businesses and everything else. It's an awesome sport, and it's just one of those that I've just been blessed to be in for a long time. But here we go. I first fished my first BASS tournament in 1977.
Gosh.
So how old were you in 1977?
I was 4. Here I'll blow you away. I was 4 years old. I still lived in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
Really?
Yeah. We hadn't moved to Canada yet. And we moved a year or two later. But yeah, so I was in Belfast, and you were kicking off your career. I don't know what's more shocking, the fact that we're actually talking. You're talking to some kid from Belfast, when people have the kind of career you've had, I mean, you're a Hall of Famer, you've won a lot of tournaments, you've made a mark on the sport, you know that, and that's not boastful. Even the television end of things and everything. But if you look at like what you built, I think people often look at that and they kind of feel like, well, that guy sat down and he put a master plan together and he said, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. How much of this was planned? Like that tournament when you went in 77, the first Bassmaster event, what was your plan?
Have fun. So I'd read about it. I mean, Ray Scott, you read Bassmaster magazine and you read about the tournaments and the guys fishing in the tournaments, and you're like, I love fishing, and I'm like, this is cool. I'd love to try it. And so, you start fishing local tournaments, your club and regional stuff. And I just had the opportunity to do a one-off, tournament on the St. Johns River, which is only an hour away. And so, it was one of those things where I'd love to try it, love to see what it's like. And it was it was amazing because, Ray Scott, I mean, just amazing individual. So we showed up at the registration was a full-on dinner. You showed up and everybody went through registration. You sat down at a table and they served you dinner. I remember the green beans, and I can't remember if it was, chicken or something like that. But I do remember the green beans. And I remember, Rick Clunn being there, which you read about. I remember all these greats. Roger Moore, if you remember Roger Moore back in the old days, he had on these crazy jumpsuits, and a lot of guys had jumpsuits back in those days. And the Linders, and it was one of those things. Tom Mann, the original, Tom Mann, and I'm just sitting there in awe of these professional anglers, and then to make a check, and you're pretty young. I was born in 56, so I would be is that 21? 77? Yeah, I guess that'd be 21 or whatever. And so all of a sudden I make a check and I'm like $625, finished 28th. And it's like, this is really cool. I mean, do something you love and get a check. That's really cool. But no, I didn't have a plan. I just fished and I rolled with the punches. So, if an opportunity opened up, you kind of went with it, and it led me to here. I mean, what can I say?
Not a bad course of events. But before that, and I've never asked you about this, you were a motorcycle racer. Is that true?
Yeah. I wasn't really good, but I did. I loved it. We would ride cycles, and I had a little Hodaka Super Rat and 100cc, and it was a really cool bike, and we had a lot of fun right out in the woods, and then we did a couple hare scrambles, and I was going to do a motocross. I entered the motocross, and it was a short track, and it had a lot of big whoop-de-doos, and I wasn't the best at that. And very honestly, like the second major whoop-de-doo in a practice lap, I crushed my cojones.
Oh gosh!
And I was like, oh, and I said, this track just doesn't suit me. It doesn't have any good. And so I lowered my bike.
You were too much of a man for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I loaned my bike to my buddy that was with me, and he had a 125 Hodaka. So he rode mine because it was a short track and had a lot of crazy stuff in this track. And he wasn't used to my bike, so on the opening on the first moto, he takes off. He gets to the turn, you 90-degree back, and everybody's racing into this little point. And he gets there and he guns it, and he's like mid-pack, but he takes out 5 or 6 bikes because my bike's really quick, so it lifted up, and he wasn't used to that. And so he gets up last. gets up last, gets on my bike, and I'm like, man, I should have never loaned him. Just let him race his bike. He's used to it. Well, he wins the moto. He just comes back and eats everybody's up. Now, he was a good racer, me, not so much. But so I knew that really wasn't what I wanted to do with life, was racing cycles. But I love riding. I kept that bike forever. And even when I was working back in the days when I had my dad had a pest control business and I was helping him, and I would get on it as a break and just take off and ride through the woods and just enjoyed riding it.
When's the last time you've been on a motorcycle?
Ooh, long time.
Been a bit.
Long time. Yeah. Wow. It'd be scary right now.
Well, I mean, you're retired now. These are things you can do. Yeah. I mean, you do a lot riskier stuff, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But so when you went to that first event, one of the things, first of all, you said Ray Scott was an amazing person. When you met him that time, did you think he was amazing when you first met him, or is it just what he accomplished? And so, like, did that come over time, or was he one of those people when you first meet, you're like, this is not a normal one?
So you meet him and he's so welcoming, because every time that he got up at the registrations and all, he wanted to meet anybody that was new. He said, man, come, I want to talk to you, come by and say hi and let me know. And so he was always that personable, I mean, he was a salesman, and he was always not only selling bass, but selling himself, and did a great job. And so, you felt a little bit like family, so I didn't go like, oh my gosh, there's Ray Scott. It was more, he was incredible. And as you go along and you see how good he was at everything, it's just like, it was special. It was special. So yeah. And then to get to be, over the years, you get to be really good friends, because it's like an extended family, Dave. You know that. I mean, those people that you deal with on a weekly basis and stuff like that, they just become family. And so it was special. I went to his his funeral or whatever that we had, and you think of all the good times. And I remember the last time I saw him and talked to him personally, and he had gotten dementia and all, and I was really worried. I was like, man, I do not want to have a memory of Ray that wasn't Ray, Yeah. And if you know what I mean, I was so blessed that he was Ray Scott that day, and we got to spend time, and dude, it's almost bringing me to tears, but what a cool guy. What a cool guy. And he remembered Pops, and because Pops and him, my dad would come and then work the tournament, and Dad loved Ray. So in fact, I got a picture here of Dad and Ray Scott. And anyway, so yeah, special.
An amazing man. And that was an amazing service. I was lucky enough to be at it. Just to hear, I mean, Ray was just such I've always said, like, I don't think there would be bass fishing. Like, I think there'd be bass fishing, but I just think, like, he's just that special person that came along and made it. You had to be a ridiculous dreamer to you know what I mean? Like, it's a ridiculous dream to say I want to fish for a living, but it's even more ridiculous to say I want to make a league at a time where fishermen weren't considered anything what it is today.
I fished, and I probably fished for 20 years professionally. So that's got to put me into the 2000s, or close to that, upper 90s, before I had people respect the sport. So they would say, did you ever get a real job? And I'm like, man, I get up at 3:00 in the morning and I go all day. You're tired. You're worn out. You're making 1,000 casts. You're running from here to there. You're making decisions. You come in, you redo your tackle, redo your boat. You get 3 or 4 hours of sleep and you're off again. And you might do that 2 weeks in a row, get a day to go to a couple seminars or sports shows. And one time I left home and I think I was gone for 8 weeks, before I came back. And I'm like, that's a lot of time away from home and a lot of effort and a lot of work. And so, but now, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of the sport, and so proud of seeing the high school, the college, college scholarships, and they come out of there and they're so good. These young anglers are incredibly talented.
Yeah, it's to me, it's I couldn't imagine to see it through your eyes, because to me, you just keep seeing them come and how prepared they are. And I mean, I remember, and I don't know if you were the same, but I remember the first time somebody mentioned, one day there'll be scholarships for pro anglers.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I laughed about it. I'm like, come on. Yeah, sure, they're going to get a shirt and whatever. Now you get these kids that they're not given boats and trucks, but they have boats and trucks to use, and their education is paid for. It is mind-boggling how fast that part of the program has come.
Yes, it is great too. It really is great to see.
Yeah. What if you could go back to that first tournament in 19? Is that thunder I hear?
We are in
freaking Florida, aren't we? It is every day, isn't it?
Oh man, it's terrible. So I'm getting ready to do. We have hunting season starts, in different places. And so we have a hunting season that's starting gator season, where you actually capture and kill them and process them and get to eat the meat. And that season starts on the 15th. And so I am getting ready to prepare a bait, because a lot of times we'd try to bait them if we can't get them just, out and cast them and stuff. And I need rain. I mean, I need sun, a lot of sun. We got rain now every day for like a week and a half or 2 weeks. Every day, 40%. It's like, you got to be kidding me. So timing, never know.
They know. It's just, that's how the world seems to work. I mean, I can tell you, for the last 15 years, the fishing has been best at home when the Elite Series is happening. Like, it's just, it never.
And you're gone.
There'll be. There are certain bites that come, annually, like okay, like the crappie have moved into all the bays and it's super easy in the spring. And I'll have buddies talk to me and they'll be like, when do you think it's happening? And I'll be like, well, it is happening exactly. And I'll read like I leave on Tuesday, so by Wednesday they should be hammering. And sure enough, I get pictures. It's the evilness that is this world, but it's a pretty good world as it is.
That it is.
If you could go back to that first tournament and give that young Shaw Grigsby some advice, what would it be?
Wow, man, I'm not that deep a person, but I can tell you that, I think that, the thing is, I had such a passion for it, and there's so many young anglers that have a passion for it. And, I always respect what Denny did with Chad. And he told Chad that, I'll help you any way I can, but you're going to get a college education first. And so, I would say make sure, because that gives you plan B, that gives you backup. And I think I would tell youngsters that, to make sure you have a backup, because, it's a tough sport and these guys are so good, and to make it in the sport, you have to really work at it, and you have to want it, and you have to, spend a lot of time. You can't give up. And it's one of those things that just, I think I'd have to say, because if things don't work out, you need to have something to do, something else to support a family or to make a living in, whether it's in the industry or not, whether it's in sales or communications or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, that's a tough question, especially to a young one, because with me, when I was young like that, doing it, and I didn't have a plan. I didn't have hey, I'm going to do this as a living. I actually fished really hard, and I made checks in the state of Florida and around, fishing a little bit outside the state, just kind of southeast region type deal. And in 84, now I'd fished, I think 5 BASSs by then. So I'd fish it when they'd come to Florida. And in 1984, I'd saved up $8,000 in tournament winnings. And I got married in 80. And 84, I saved up $8,000. And at the beginning of 84, I said, I'm stepping out as a professional. I had enough money. I felt that $8,000 would go 2 seasons. Now that $8,000 today will go not even one tournament, right? And so the differences are monumental from back then. So I figured I could fish 2 seasons, and if I wasn't good enough to stay on and get somewhere and learn something and make it, that there was going to be a plan B for me. And things worked out. So, I think in 84, November that year, so I started, that was the end or middle of the season, because bass would always start in September and end in May. And then we'd have a classic in July, August. Usually it was first week of August, end of July, beginning of August. So I started, in early 84, and fished the end of that season, and then the full season for the 84-85 Classic was my first full season. And in November of 84, I won the Redman AllAmerican, which was the first check for $100,000 that was given to an angler. So that was one that said, that's pretty cool. That gives you some money to travel, to do whatever. And it kept me on course, because I can tell you that 84, 85 full season, I got my butt kicked on the BASS circuit. So I went to back then it was AFMA, AFTMA, which is a big tackle show. I went to AFMA and I had compiled a resume. this is going to be my first real time at doing this stuff. So I compiled a resume, and I'd fished 34 tournaments from January to June, into June, because AFMA was like first part of July. And I had made a check in 32 of them. And the 2 that I didn't make a check in were 2 BASS checks, and I just got beat up. And the next year was no different. That was in the beginning of 84. Then in 85, I just got whomped again. But then the 85, 86 season, things turned around, and I was struggling, and I made the Classic. So you make the Classic for the 1986 Classic and at Chickamauga, and things just start to roll, and you just have to keep going. So, perseverance is a little bit of it, and fortune another one to win the Redman AllAmerican to give me the money to stay out there. But it happened in that 2-year time frame. I had 2 years planned, and it happened in that 2-year time frame.
Today's high-tech fishing world can be a real pain in the neck, especially if you're running the wrong mounts. Beat Down Outdoors, they bring the graph to you, and they support this podcast and care enough about you to make this a short ad read. Check out Beat Down Outdoors. Now back to the show.
That tournament specifically, the Redman AllAmerican, it is amazing. Like, if you look at the winners of the career starters that was to so many, major players, like Hall of Famers, people with careers like yours. It's incredible the start that gave to so many anglers.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. I mean, Rick Clunn won the one. I think the next year I went out to promote it because they had the All-American out west in Havasu, and he mashed us out there. Of course, Rick Clunn mashes us anywhere. That's just one of those memories I have. I got to get paired with some of these guys, and I got paired with Rick, I think, 3 times. At least 2 times I can remember. It might be 3. I'm trying to anyway. And every time it was spectacular. One time he showed up. He came with a baggie, a Ziploc baggie. The 1-quart Ziploc bag. That was his tackle box.
Well,
and he
you scared me there.
Like
I didn't know what was in the baggie for a second there. You scared me.
He had a couple hooks, some weights, maybe a worm or 2, and what was on his rod. And he was that good. He had so much confidence and in that, and it was amazing. And I learned so much from being with him. I just, I fished with him. So he fished with me at Harris Chain, and we had a great day. And then I got paired with him at Lake Powell. And I go, well, he's a West Coast, wonder. He's won all these U.S. Opens and all this stuff. I said, I'm going with you, because he immediately just said, I'll ride with you. This is your stuff. I'll ride with you. There was no question of flipping for a boat or anything. And then and it was pretty much the same way with that. I said, no problem. I'll ride with you. You're the man. And, man, I learned more in one day with him about shade and all, about the fisheries, the West Coast fisheries, that you could have learned in a lifetime. You'd have to go fishing a lot to figure out what he taught me in one day of fishing with him. And it's just spectacular. Those days, I kind of, you don't have them anymore, because you don't put pro and pro in the boat. You don't share the knowledge anymore. So a lot of that sharing of knowledge was really special. But at the same time, now it's much more professional in the sense that this guy doesn't affect what this guy does, so you're on your own. You really, truly are on your own. So to me, it's much more professional now than what it was back then.
Did Plum Carry people almost talk about him like he is a mystical character nowadays. You know what I mean? Like, he is, like, if you were writing a novel, Clun would be a character, a fictional character you would create. You know what I mean? He disappears in the misty hills of the Ozarks in between tournaments and just meditates. And did he carry that same kind of mythical aura then?
Oh, yes. But he, he's always been a very mental angler. So at Powell, it was pretty cool. So, Powell was a struggling kind of place. And we ran, just got in his boat, ran up the lake, and he pulls through this little crack hole in the wall of this sheer rock bluff, and goes through this hole. And I'm like, where the heck are we going? And all of a sudden it opens up into a little pond. And he said, come on up. So I'm up on the front deck with him, and he's letting me throw in front of him. It didn't matter. He wasn't trying to do anything. When he caught his fifth fish, I think I may have caught two, but he caught his seventh fish. I think it was a 7-fish limit back then. But when he caught his limit, he looked at his watch and he goes, 43 minutes. I didn't think it was going to take that long. I'm like, really? I've just busted my butt to do this. And he truly is. He's one guy that, when I started my career, that was a guy that I really looked up to, is him and Klein. Klein coming out and never having a job except professional angling. That was pretty cool.
And so rare at the time. And now you look at how many people
do that.
There's a ton of people that have never known anything outside of professional fishing. It is wild. Those draw days, everybody didn't always get along, though, did they? I could imagine it would make great television today.
Yeah, it would. There was one guy on tour that his deal was to mess with the big name pros. So he loved to get drawn with them, and he would drag you as a big name pro in the middle of the lake for his half a day. He'd call his half a day. He said, we'll flip a coin, he'd take it, whatever. And he would put you in the middle of the lake with nothing around and just fish and shaft you for a half a day. And so we would always sit at the draw and we'd listen for his name. We're like, oh my gosh, here he is. Hope it's not me. Hope it's not me. Or you get drawn ahead of it and you go, thank goodness. And, but yeah, he did that to quite a few guys. And I don't know what possessed him to be, evil. But, and one of my first draws almost took me out of fishing. I won't bring up any names with it, but I got drawn with this guy, and he coaxed me. We were on Toho, Kissimmee chain, and he coaxed me to go with him. He said, man, you can have the front, you can do all this. And so I trust, I'm a young kid, this is like my second BASS or third, whatever, in the winter ever was in Toho. So I get out there, I go to one of my little spots, and we pull in, and I hop up, and I'm running the trolling motor. Well, he walks around, we're flipping, he walks around in front of me, gets on the little pointy end and flips in front of me. And I'm like, what? And so it was one of those startling things. When you have a bad draw, it makes you question whether you want to really be in this sport, But I didn't get a whole lot of those. I was blessed. I got most of our guys were really, really good. I mean, like Klein, I paired with him, I think three times at least. The first 1984, so I'm first out. The first tournament of the 84-85 season was on the Hudson River. And I was leading angler of the year in the Redman, the Gator division. So I fished that. I had to fly up and fish with a buddy and fish as a no-boater in that one. And I got paired with Gary. And he's like, man, come on up, fish right with me, And he treats you like you were, been fishing with him for 100 years. I mean, that's who those guys were. And so, you have situations like that where everybody you get with is really good, but you might have one or two, just kind of turkeys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool that, I mean, everybody just had to know each other even more. So like you look at now, I mean, a lot more virtual meetings where you guys don't even have meetings. And at that point, right. I mean, there's no better way to start a relationship with somebody than spend a day in the water on the boat with them. I mean, if you don't like each other, it's going to be very uncomfortable. But most of the time, you end up, no matter. I mean, if you take a media event, you go to a media event, you're paired with different people. You leave the boat always with a new friend.
Right, exactly. And nowadays, I fish a tournament, and the only guys you really know or you get to talk to are the guys that are in your flight, because you take off with them, you come in with them, you get to talk at the tank, you get, as you're waiting to weigh in. And so you get a little relationship there. So when they're in your flight, you pretty much get to know them. But if they're not, it's like you might see them at a distance and not see them at all during the tournament. They come in, weigh in, they're gone, and same here. And we go to gas up and get things done. And so, yeah, it's a different sport now than what it was back then.
Everything evolves.
Yes.
When you look back at your career, can you say that was the big moment in my career, or is it just the entire body?
So probably for my own satisfaction, we had a megabucks at Harris Chain, and I led all 4 days. So I led every day of the qualifying. And when that happened, that was a turning point that told me, hey, I can do this. And that was really a major part of me, staying the course and keeping going and keep fishing. And because fishing it's a roller coaster. I mean, as a sport, it's a roller coaster. You'll have a good one, and you win, and you're higher and high, and then next 2 tournaments you can't find a fish. You're in the middle of a donut. They're everywhere around you, and you can't catch one. And so there's a lot of those roller coasters. So yeah, I think that was one that was the one that really set me apart and said, hey, you can do this. It's not just fun and games. You can actually make a living and do this. And that was really kind of cool.
How many times throughout your career did you go through that stages where, because it's such to watch anglers, you see anglers when they're at their very highest, and then you see them when they're at some of their lowest. It's the same person, and they're technically still the same, but mentally they feel like a totally different human. And I think that's normal in life, even you shouldn't be the same person 10 years later. You know what I mean? You should always change, I think. But how many times in your career did you find yourself questioning your ability to do this?
Yeah, there were quite a few, and I can't put my finger on like an exact, but I'm going to say there was probably, 4 or 5 real questionable times where I was like, man, I can't. I mean, there were things like I'm like, maybe my hands stink or something. The fish smell me. I mean, there were times when I was questioning everything I did because I just couldn't catch them. And so you'd go on dry spells and you really worried about that. And I've had guys come up to me and say, man, how do you get out of these slumps? And because every one of them gets into it at times, and the best thing I can say is you just keep fishing, keep holding the course, be who you are, keep fishing, and it will happen, and it'll come back around, so yeah, that's true. But there are a lot of those that happen, where you question, maybe I need to take up golf.
Is it harder to win or harder to get out of one of those?
They're both extremely tough. So winning encompasses everything. It means everything has to go your way, that week. And you have to be on them. You have to make the right decisions. You have to not lose fish. And so you got to be on point. And in fact, before I was here, I watched a little blurb of Hackney. And I don't know if he won or not. It was a little blurb, and I got a feeling it was from an MPFL, but I'm not sure. But he said he had a 30-pound sack by, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And he said, the first fish, he throws a crankbait out, and he cranks a spot, and he hooks his fish, comes up, kind of jumps, and it's like a 7-something. He's like, oh my goodness, and he's cranking. All of a sudden, it felt really weird, like he'd lost it and then caught it again, and he didn't know what had happened. But it was like he hooked a whole different fish, like it wasn't a bass anymore, stripping him and doing all kinds of stuff. When he got it up to the boat, he had one treble in the tail of the fish, and he landed it, and then he managed to whack, that 30 pounds. And I'm assuming he did really well in that tournament. But what I was saying is that things happen like that where you probably in any situation would have lost him, but in this situation you caught him and you end up winning. That last win at Harris Chain for me. I worked hard at that one. The first day I didn't catch that much, and I'm in the hunt, but I didn't catch much. The second day I caught almost 30 pounds. So I caught the big bag. I had a 10 even in that bag. And then the third day I kind of hung on, and the fourth day was really a hang on, where everybody comes up and goes, oh, you got this, you got this, you got this. And I'm like, I don't have it until those fish hit the scale. And that says I've got it, till you say I got it, I don't have it. so I'm sitting there going, this is really, really tough. And so, but I caught a 10-pounder on a swim bait that, I hooked it and caught, it was a fragment of the skin, and it still held. It should have just popped out, ripped out if I'd forced it a little too much, but just the way I fight him, the way I fight fish, he didn't jump as much, and I get her in, and I win the tournament. So there's little pieces like that make that winning. Getting out of the slump, that it can take a lot longer and a lot more fortitude and a lot more just keep going and keep practicing. I think a lot of times you try to force things, and when you force things, I tell this just takes me off on a tangent real quick. I tell youngsters, when you get in a situation and you're winning a tournament, right? They go into the final day, and I see this over and over and over, that they get into a final day and they don't do good on that final day. And I said, first off, you want to relax. You want to have fun. You want to enjoy the moment, but you definitely want to relax, because when you go into that final day, you are keyed up. You are wanting to win. You are excited. I can guarantee your hook sets are faster. Mm-hmm. Your movements are quicker. You're going to move the baits quicker. You need to relax. And I tell youngsters about that. When you get in that situation where you're getting ready to win your first, or you're getting ready to win one, you need to remember, slow down a bit, relax, and enjoy it. And don't force it, because you'll miss fish because you were reacting too quick. You actually, it elevates you to a level that is not good for your fishing.
it's wild to look from the outside and watch, because there's certain people, and I think that's what I equate, and I'd love to hear your opinion on when people use the term learning to win. And it seems like, I've heard people over the years be like, oh, baloney, that, but to me, it feels like there's something that happens when people win, that all of a sudden now they've got the results to the test almost. And on the opposite of what you explained seems to happen, where all of a sudden on that final day, all of a sudden they're more precise. They slow down instead of speed up. Is that just hocus pocus stuff that I'm making up, or is that real?
That's real. I mean, you really do. It seems like once you get one under your belt, and I've seen it in so many anglers coming along, and they struggle and they struggle and they struggle, and all of a sudden they start figuring it out, and then they just mash them. And it's just really, I mean, I remember Edwin coming up to me, Edwin Evers, and one of the all-time greats, he'll have a Hall of Fame, everything. Edwin came up to me. We're fishing at Clear Lake, and we're coming down the banks, down the Tule banks, and he comes around a point, and I come around a point, and he's like, man, he says, Shaw, what do I got to do? And he was just, it was in his early times, and he's struggling, and dude, look what happens, and it wasn't by, don't let me get that wrong, it wasn't by my advice at all. It was that he stayed the course, he kept working at it. And next thing you know, he's learned and he's figured it out, and then he just keeps mashing them, and then he's unstoppable, and that's really cool to watch. And I see that in a ton of anglers, how they start out, and you're like, man, I don't know, this guy's ever going to make a check, and then all of a sudden they're rolling and just rocking and rolling. So it's fun to watch. So don't give up if you're in that situation. Don't give up. Just keep going.
Yeah, it's wild to see the evolution of like anglers, and then what happens to them once they get that. And it feels like from the outside, it feels like, and the more you try to say to them, like when it's going bad, it's just worse. Like you can't, something has to clip, because if you say to an angler, hey, you caught him today, that's your turning point out of the slump. That doesn't matter. They need to feel that. What does that feel like? Because you've had times where you were pretty unstoppable. What does it feel like when it is firing like that?
It's fun. I mean, you go into every tournament knowing that you're catching them, and things just fall into place. And I mean, I remember at a classic in James River, and I've got a pretty good bag, and I'm running out of the creek, and I'm getting ready to head back to weigh in, and I'm way up in the the Chickahominy up there, and I come around this corner, and it just shut me down. It's like, man, throw it this corner right here, you're going to catch one. And I shut down real quick, spun around, wake's going, take my crankbait, catch one, throw him in the boat, throw another time. I think I may have caught one, but anyway, I turned around cold, and I'm running again, and I get all the way to weigh in, and I can guarantee you, I stopped at weigh-in. We still could fish right by the marina there, and there was a little point of rocks, and I'm making a cast with my crankbait, and everybody's pulling in, and there's all the people on the banks, and I knew 100% when that bait left the tip of that rod that I was catching a bass on that cast. I knew it. It wasn't even a question. Caught him, bring him in, and I finished like 11th or something in the classic, but I'm like, those days are special, and they're really cool. You'd love, Rick was able to tap into that a lot. But when you're rocking, it's that way. It's that, here it is, and it's happening. So it's really special. They call it being in the zone. I don't know. I just call it being focused. And it's real special.
Is that one of the greatest feelings on earth?
Yeah. Yeah, it is neat. I mean, it is a lot of fun. And I love, and I'm not one of these guys that, I love watching people compete. I love watching people do that. The Johnson brothers there, and they are studs, man. When you talk about going to the St. Lawrence, you just go ahead and walk away because you're going for second. You might beat them, but it's going to be a rarity. And it's fun to watch guys that are really good. Watching the guys at Forward Sonar that are really good at it, you just go, oh my gosh. And then you go do it and you're going, how are they that? I mean, they know the size of the fish, before they make the cast. They know, the right presentation and the right bait to work, and then how to work it to get them to eat. And I can do that some, but I'm not nearly what these guys are that have used it that many hours. And it's like, wow. Yeah, it's cool.
Why, with that technology specifically, why do you think there's people that are just better at it? Like, did they commit to it? Have they done it long? Like,
it's hours. I mean, it truly is hours. It is, how much time do you have behind the unit really studying it? And so if you study it and you set it on a particular scale, and you keep it on that scale all the time, so you don't adjust it, don't change it, whether it's, 20 down and 100 out or whatever you have, I'm trying to mainly stay in normal waters at 15 and 100, but sometimes you have to change that. Well, then you get to see the size of the dot of the fish, and you get to make that cast and you see how big he is. And you also, a lot of times when I'm fishing, I'll look at fish in clear water and then see them on my screen. So I know what a 7-pounder looks like, I know what a 8-pounder looks like. And if you know that, and then you can see everything from the fin movement, the tail movement, you'll see that. My active target too, I'll see a fish turn, I'll see a dot. And I go, okay, there's a fish, I make the throw, and I go, nope, don't want that one. He'll turn and you go, no, that's a big old garfish. I don't want to touch that. But when he's facing away, all you see is the dot. You see a dot of a fish. When he turns sideways, you're like, no, don't want to have anything to do with him. So, but these guys are 20 times what I am because they started in high school, and then they're fishing all these competitive tournaments through high school and college, and they're using this every day. And it's like you get pretty good at it. And I had a guy that's a crappie fisherman, and I loved fishing with him. He invited me to come fish up there in Mississippi, whatever the Great Crappie Lake is. I'm an old guy, so I forget stuff. Anyway, but he was so good, thousands and thousands of hours, that he would look at that fish and he says, that's your 3-pounder. That's what you want. And that's not a crappie. That's going to be a carp. He would take every fish. He could tell you what it is and tell you the size of it. And I'm like, wow. That's just wow.
Wow. Where are you with that technology? Do you think it's a good thing for the sport, bad thing for the sport? It's definitely the most talked about thing in the freaking sport.
Yeah. I think it is a great thing for fishing. Okay. I think it's an incredible tool for fishing. And, to be able to see the fish and know that they're there. And I think it's one of the most incredible teaching tools. We have learned more about bass and bass behavior because we know actually where they are. We don't think that's where they are. We don't, all this from the 60s and 70s and 80s, all this stuff that we thought we knew about, and we talked about bass fishing and all that and their movements, and it's like you can throw it all out the window. You just throw it all out the window. I got Bassmaster magazine here behind me, every one of them, and I'm going to throw them all away because they didn't mean anything. And now, exactly. Now you see them live. That's where they are, and they're out there chasing bait, and so I think it's the greatest tool ever. Now, is it good for tournaments? Yeah, on the one-on-one, like what we do, it's really good. On a partner situation or a pro-am, maybe not, because that guy in the back's going to struggle a bit, or he's not going to have the same results. But, so a lot of times I was a sight fisherman. So a lot of people in sight fishing, you got a bedding fish and they're like, well, doesn't do me any good. I'm in the back of the boat and he's bed fishing, But I would go and I'd either get a big limit or I'd say, oh, here's a 2-pounder, 3-pounder, which is really helpful. I say, you catch this one. There he is. And I'd point him at it and I'd let him throw, and I'd teach him what he's doing. I said, okay, you got him, set the hook. He'd set the hook and catch a fish. And when they worked with me, we'd both have good limits, and that's what you could do also with forward sonar is you get your good limit and you're fishing and you go, well, here's one that's probably not as big as what I need. Throw right there, 30 feet out and whatever, and fish slow. And maybe he catches it, maybe he doesn't. But the point being is that, the angler, it's up to the angler to make those co-anglers have a good day. And so, I think for some of those situations, it's probably not the best, but man, I wouldn't give it up for anything. I mean, it's that good. It's that good on everything, not just that. It's good salt water. It's good fresh water. It's good doing everything. So
Avco not only makes incredible outdoor clothing, but they care about anglers with their 10% pledge. Avco and the Shed family donate at least 10% of the company's profits to conservation and making fishing better. Now back to the show.
Has anything throughout your career made a stirring like this has? It feels like the old saying, you shouldn't talk. What should you not talk about? Politics, religion, and what was that? There's another one, but it feels like you should add forward-facing sonar into that list.
Yeah, because you can get some enemies. Well, the daggum Alabama rig. I was so, when they came with Alabama, I'm really like, why worry about it? But man, it got people up in arms, and I'm like, really? I mean, just leave it alone. If it's illegal in the state, you do it. That's all there is to it. And there were so many whiny crybabies about the Alabama rig. I just laughed, So I always like jabbing a bit on that too, But yeah. So there are some things that created those issues. So
yeah, you told me about when you win, things happen, that are unexplainable. But there's also the opposite of that. The guy who finishes second place, third place, that the story that's not told quite often. And weirdly enough, guys don't want to tell them. You know what I mean? They kind of hide them because they're like, I don't want to sound like that guy. But you, I'm sure, had a bunch of those throughout your career.
Yeah, I've had 9 wins in BASS. I've had more wins, with other organizations and stuff, but the 9 wins in BASS. But I've also had 11 seconds. So I've had 11 times where I didn't knock it out of the park, but I was this close, And so you think about that, and you're like, yeah, that's just a fine line. Losing this fish. One was a tournament on Okeechobee, and I actually was throwing a Johnson Gold spoon, and reeling across the flats, and I came across a deal where a prop mark where a boat had plowed up and torn up the grass. There was a little strip, and dude, I watched this one that was 8 pounds, just choked the spoon, just disappeared in his mouth, and I crack him, and I fight her, and she turns her head, and I'm like, I got her, and comes off, and I finish second. So, so those happen over and over again, and sometimes it just doesn't work out in your favor, but sometimes it does, and when it does, you better enjoy every minute of it. They don't come around a lot.
No, it's freakish how little the margin of victory is in pro fishing. It really, bit of a sickness with all the people that enjoy it. Like, I want to do this sport that I almost never win at, is not what most people want. I think you told me once a story about the Classic in Chicago. Oh. Am I remember that? Were you at a fish that you could have been a Bassmaster Classic champion?
Yeah. So that wind and so there's a good story about this. So that was when they first came with those life jackets that were inflatable, and they were automatic. So if you got wet, they would inflate. And I remember the winds were so bad. I mean, it was just huge waves, and it looked like you were at the beach with a big wave coming, and it would start curling at the top and then break, And I'll get to the story in a second. But I remember coming in And Clun going, man, his life jacket was all blown up from the waves hitting him. He says, I was coming in, and when they go out, when they go off, it's not quiet. It's like this big and he said it was like the hand of God got me. It's like wrapped him up and it pinches you down, and you're like, and it blew up on him. But anyway, Clun was saying that, and I was like, that's funny as heck. So and I get back to the story, but here we go. We, at the end of the tournament, the Classic, we pack all our stuff up, and I take my life jacket home, right? We're flying home, and I stuff it in my son's backpack in there. We throw it in the cab, and we get a cab to the airport. We get to the airport. He pulls his backpack out, and his backpack blew up. With the life jacket. We threw the life jacket in the garbage can and had to repack all the stuff and throw his backpack away because it just blew it up. But anyway, all right, back to that story of the Classic. So we're fishing there, and I had them out on a flat, and the waves were just ugly. I mean, when I say ugly, it was ugly. You really thought if you were sideways to the wave that it would roll you. You know, it would just turn you over, and you know, like you see some of these things in the big waves and the beach and the boats and stuff. And it was the same sound. You hear that build up, and then the waves cresting and going. And so I'm throwing a tube, and I found some really nice smallmouth out there, and I throw a tube, and I throw it out, and you're moving so fast. I mean, it just makes you, go along because of the waves and the wind. And all of a sudden I look down and I see this big one. I mean, it's probably a 4-pound smallmouth. And I see him and I go, oh my gosh. So I start reeling real quick to go on this, to get a cast to this fish because I'd thrown my tube out there. And just before I get where I'm getting my tube, he goes, and my tube bait comes out of his mouth. He had it the whole time, and I see him spit it out, and I'm like, and then you lose by 2 pounds or something ridiculous. But yeah, that was pretty funny, man.
And that happened to one of the greatest sight anglers in the sport. So maybe it's because you have such good eyes. An average angler wouldn't even have seen that. They just wouldn't have realized what that's the excuse we'll make.
It was pretty funny. It was pretty, I mean, it wasn't funny. I thought I could still do it, and I still had some fish that I could get in and fish. But that whole wind deal out at Lake Michigan was it was brutal, truly brutal.
Yeah. That was, all in all, I think deemed as a brutal classic.
Yes,
it's a little known fact. The very first Classic I ever attended. I drove down there to, and it was the ICAST AFMA. I think it was still called at that time. They did it one year where the ICAST and the Classic were one unit, and I think both equally failed. And I remember Soldier Field was empty. There was a bunch of people, but it's freaking Soldier Field.
Yeah, it was truly, it was embarrassing because if you remember Trisha Yearwood sang, and I guarantee that was probably the smallest crowd she sang to in her career, other than a little bar or something, and I mean, she was awesome, but anyway, that was enough of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this sport's been pretty good to you. I said at the beginning of our conversation, when I think of you, I think of you making me feel happy. When you think of this sport, what does it make you think of?
It makes me smile. I mean, I love it. The biggest thing I'm going to miss are you guys, the anglers. Every time I drive to a tournament this year and, I think about it, this is probably going to be the last time I see this lake, or I go to this place, or I get to experience those, early morning sunrises with the fog tornadoes that we get to see every morning. They're spinning off the water, and some of the cool stuff that we get to experience. And I think about that, but the real thing that I'm going to miss are the guys. That's an extended family. It's I'll miss the conversations, the dinner with Paul Elias, that he's been my roommate for a lot of years, the times of just fellowship with everybody. That's going to be, the biggest thing I miss of the sport. So, but it brings a smile to my face. I think it's in good hands. I truly do. I think that people create a lot of conflict that doesn't need to be there. That it just happens. That's kind of human nature. But I think that the sport's the greatest sport that has existed, and not to blow your horn, but you do a fabulous job of what you do. I mean, you truly do. And, but it is in good hands. And, I look forward to watching these guys, especially some of these younger guys, come on and just catch them. And it's going to be fun to be a fan. And I'll still fish some. I'll probably fish a Toyota Series here, or who knows? I may even fish an invitational, out there that you can get in one-off type deal. Yeah. So that may still be a part of my life, and I can tell you, I'll be back in New York, because New York, that Thousand Islands, that St. Lawrence River, Lake Ontario, that truly is one of the most magical places to go fishing ever. And I just do it in June, like June 15th to the end of June to beginning of July, any of that stuff. That's going to be a vacation, and I will plan on that.
It is a magical place. Thank you for the kind words. Here's the amazing thing about you, Shaw Grigsby. Most people, maybe they're a little more sane. When they retire, they move to Boca Raton and they sip Mai Tais on the beach or do whatever they do. They play Yahtzee, do all sorts of things. Not you, Shaw Grigsby. You're going to fish for bigger game. You're a freaking... this has blown me. I've been obsessed with your gator hunting, you and Bryce out there chasing gator. Like, I've been obsessed with this for a long time. But you're about to do it even more.
Yes. Yeah. So we do nuisance gator hunting. So when one gets in your swimming pool, or
so not just any gator, troublemaker gators.
Troublemaker gators, yeah. So we don't just go get gators, but they're sometimes really big and real aggressive, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're in a place that they're not that aggressive, but they're in a place that they can really, hurt something bad. So we get calls, and in fact, the one interruption we had on that I don't know how my do not disturb didn't work, but that was the gator trapper. He probably called to say, hey, we got to go get a gator, but I swiped him off real quick. So I'll talk to him after it. But so we get these.
Sorry to whoever's poodles getting eaten because of this podcast. I really apologize.
We've had 2 calls, and this is sad. We've had 2 calls this year where the gator ate the pet, the household pet, and that's really sad. And so we get these calls. And we capture them alive, which is stupid, but it's the best thing that we can do. So then we take them, so we capture them, we close their mouth, we put electrical tape around it, a whole lot to keep them from opening up, and then we take them to places like Gatorland, gator farms around the state, and release them there. So they're in a better place, and they get to live their life out there as opposed to chasing guys across the street and stuff. So yeah, it's a service, and it actually is really fun. So I know you're going to come with me sometime.
I want
to get
so
one
bad.
of these.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is this is rod and reel. So this is fishing. And I think that's why, we kind of hit it off. The trapper, who's Ron Sanderson, and I hit it off so good, is that, I have these fishing skills, but they transfer to the gators 100%. So we take a rod and reel with it's a 3/0 trocar treble, and I tie like an ounce and a half, 2 ounce tungsten underneath the treble, and it's sharp because it's got that trocar point. I tie it on to 80-pound Seaguar braid, and a Lew's Super Duty reel and a Lew's Super Duty rod. It's a 7-11 like musky rod. That thing will cast like a mile. So you whip it out there, you reel it across, you see him up on top, you reel across him, you hook him, and that shows you where he is. Now, most of the time he can take you and get going, but it's like hooking a big bass. What happens with a big bass? He's going to take you, strip drag and all that, and you got to chase them. So that's what we do. We chase them down. A lot of times if they bed down on the bottom, we might have to put a second hook or a third, or sometimes we take a big hook, a throw hook, until we get them up. We'll put a lasso around their neck until they get real tired. We fight them, and then when they get real tired, they don't want to do anything, so then we can close their mouth and tape them. And I actually threw a couple in my Triton boat. I had one. I'm driving the boat the other day. I had to take a picture. I got a picture on my phone of a gator head sitting on my lap, just like a puppy. You know, it's about a 7 or 8 footer, and he's laying on my lap like, you're a nice puppy right there, and I'm driving the boat. So, but he is taped. He is taped. So,
good Lord. I mean, number one, I know you've only been retired for a week, but you have not lost your ability to drop a sponsor plug, Shaw Grigsby. Gator story or not. That was wonderful. So the average day of a gator hunter, like you just wake up and wait for the phone to ring.
So what we do is we'll get a call, say, hey, we've got one, and this one's, being aggressive, chasing. I can't let my dogs out, can't let my cat out, can't do this, or it ate one of my deals, or it's chasing my kids, like my kids can't get in the lake to go swim in or whatever. And so
Florida tourism loves this conversation.
Yeah. Well, most of the time gators are scared of you.
Yeah.
It's when somebody starts to feed them. And so if somebody on the lake, and it's illegal to do this, but they tend to do it. They're just, you're not supposed to do this, to feed a gator. Once you feed a gator, then he goes, hey, that's a source of food. So now he's coming after you. You know? And he wants to get fed. And then you can't have kids walking the bank and stuff like that. And so, anyway, they'll call this 1-800 number. State of Florida will take that and send it to Ron. And Ron and I go get the gator, or Ron will get it on his own, or he'll say, hey, I've got this one, you got that one, and we'll take off. And so, it's a lot of fun. I mean, all I can say, it's a lot of fun to fight, a 7, 8, 9, 10 foot, 11 foot. I think we have maybe 4 this year, 3 or 4 over 11 that we've gotten, that are just giant, old, massive gators.
Is that the biggest, like an 11 footer? Like, what, do you keep records of such things?
That's the biggest that we've got. Yes, that's the biggest we've gotten. So we had one that was a 11-1 that we were dragging him in. We were in a little John boat, and we should have taped him on the water, but we didn't. And we had him, Bryce is in the front of the John boat, and he's a big kid, so it's sitting low. He's got him with the lasso around his neck, so he's holding him. And we got another rope on him, and Ron's got that, and I'm trolling motor with his little motor guide on the back of this John boat, pushing him towards the bank. Well, he's kind of been drug a while, so he's kind of resting. He's just like, oh, do. He turns around, and he hits that boat, and he blows holes through it. Looks like you shot it with a 45. So there's 2 holes in the bottom of the boat right next to Bryce's feet, 1 hole in the side. So he just got the side and the bottom, and water shooting up like you put garden hoses in it. And we got a mad 11-footer on the outside of the boat hanging on the rope. We're like, we're going down with a mad 11-footer. So we managed to get out of that pretty easy. We got Bryce out of the front of the boat and got him to the back of the boat. And then I moved to the center. So we got the weight to the back. And once the weight got to the back, the bow lifted up and there was no more water coming in. But if not, we'd have been sticking fingers in and getting the boat to the bank. So, but we do have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, sounds like a blast to me. Is it fun? Like in that moment? Shaw, is it fun or is it not? Like afterwards when you get in the truck, it's like a roller coaster. You're freaking out the whole time. You're like, why did I do this? Then you get off and you were like, that was exhilarating. Yeah, but are you like when you've got a gator chewing your boat and it's about to sit, like, is that fun? I
thought it was really cool. I think, Bryce probably didn't care for it right there. He had another one, this big 11.6 or 11.7, whatever we got the other day, and he was on the front again, and he had the rope on him, and I had him hooked, and so this gator comes up and does one of these greyhound where he just comes up and comes down, and he was so huge, and he came up right beside the boat. He was literally this 11.5 giant, was literally probably a foot off of Bryce's shoulder, and totally able to, if he wheeled back and wanted to grab his shoulder, and he could have done that. But, immediately when I see it, I just back off. I let him go down. So he just greyhounded, and we're all just like, oh my goodness, was that not nuts? And so, Lucas Black
Yeah.
fishes the invitationals with us, and a great angler, and a really, a great Christian, good buddy of mine. He had a shirt one day, and I said, man, I wish you made that with a gator on it. It had deer horns, but it says, we do dangerous things carefully. And I love that statement. I love it because that's a nuisance trapper. You do really dangerous things, but you do it as careful as you can, so you still have your arms and legs and your life. So, but it isn't a need that Florida has, because people do stupid stuff like feed them. If they didn't feed them, we probably wouldn't have to do it very much at all.
Stop feeding the friggin' gators, people. So Shaw Grigsby's telling you, stop it. Put him out of business as a gator hunter.
I've run a Yamaha outboard for over 30 years. It has got me home safe each and every time. If you enjoy this podcast, remember, Yamaha supports it, and they care enough about you to make this ad read very short. Now back to the show.
That sounds wild. So if me and you do this, when should we do it? Like, what time of year is the best?
So we would get in that April, May, and June. It is stupid. When I say stupid, it is like 6-7 calls a day. Okay. Normally December, January, we don't get very many calls, right? But this year we probably had 5 or 6 in December, and we probably had just as many in January. And those are the cold months. When it's cold, gators are hibernating, and they're not really an issue. But we had some good calls then. But once you start getting into that March, April, May, they really get to happening. So, you might get lucky if you're in town for, I don't know what your schedule is for next year. When's your first Florida tournament, or do you come to Florida next year?
We're not going to Florida, but I'll make a special trip for this. No Florida or Texas.
Wow.
People said they wanted a different schedule. I'll show you what I'll do. I won't go to the 2 states that everybody goes to. It's going to be very different, but I'll make a special trip for this. Because it's gator hunting with Shaw Grigsby.
Yeah, I'd love to take you. It'll be a lot of fun. And so anytime really, April, May, June is incredibly crazy. So if you have an open time or a week, or you don't need but a day or two, and come down, and I'm pretty sure in those time frames we're going to have some, and quite a few actually. So
we just sit around waiting for the gator phone to go off.
Probably not. So what'll happen is we get so many calls that we can't handle them all, right? So we will end up having 5 or 6 that we have to get in this location, and 2 over here, and so we'll have gators. So it shouldn't be an issue once it starts to get warm.
Do you pre-order? How do you You know the word I'm looking
so prioritize.
For. How do you prioritize? That's exactly the word.
The e-gators, we call them an e-gator. It's an emergency gator. That's the first one. So those usually have, be it somebody's front yard or at their doorstep, and they can't get out, and or they'll have a police officer waiting, like keeping an eye on this one. Like we got one right here. I had one on campus the other day. I had to go out about 10 or 11 o'clock in the evening, and there was a a 7.5 footer or something, almost an 8 footer. And she was on the road and then walked down this boardwalk, and they didn't want any of the students or anything to get hit. So, I come in there and I take my lasso and I walk down to this gator, and it turns and hissing at me. And so it kind of snapped at me one time, and I said, "You're not getting away with this." And I slowly, got to go slow so they don't, bite everything. I got it around their neck and I cinched it down, and then it just rolled and tumbled, and I perp walked it all the way off the boardwalk out to the street, tied it up on a pole until it got tired, because you got to get it tired, because you can't, they're so fast, you can't take control of them until they're tired. And so you want to make sure. So I'm tapping it. I've got this cushion, the cushion that I use on the end of my rod. I've got one of those on a wood dowel, and I'm tapping it and making him, do stuff. And first, he bites my cushion and it's in his mouth, and I finally get to jump on him. And then I get the cushion out of his mouth and tape him. And it's a little harder to tape him one person. You got to kind of because you're holding his mouth, you got the tape, you kind of put the tape under her finger and then tape him as best you can, and get him to do it. So one man job is what's really kind of it's a challenge, and it's fun. And Ron does it all the time. He'll get a 10.5 or 11 footer and do it all by himself. And I'm like, man, you're nuts. That's just like, I think he likes having us around though.
Yeah, I guess so. Gosh, I mean, school's out. I'm in my head, I'm envisioning all these drunken students at 11. What was it, a Friday night? I'm imagining a Friday night. Don't tell me, don't change the dream. And you just tie this to a tree so I can flip her. Like, is it a tree you tie it to? Like, what are we?
It's one of those concrete poles, steel poles that they put to keep your car from going into where the students are. So I tied him to one of those. It's about, 8 inches around or something. I just wrapped it around to it and then just let him keep going until he finally quit. But it was really amazing how fast they are. I mean, they're truly incredibly fast, animals.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I can't wait. And I feel like I'm somewhat panicked here because I know that earlier in the podcast somebody was calling you about a gator, so I don't want to take too much longer of your time. But I want to try something with you. We've brought these out at different podcasts, but we've never done this. These are the cards of honesty. You were bringing up names, and if you saw earlier, I went and grabbed them because you were bringing up people you fished against. This is from the season of 92-93. There is Shaw Grigsby cards in here, so I'm just going to randomly pull out cards. And I want you to just tell me a story. Give me a comment on that person.
That's cool.
We'll just quickly go. Okay, so the first card I pulled, and this is a strong first pull, if I don't say so myself. One Guido Hibden.
Dude, the man was amazing. I mean, truly a gifted sight fisherman and a gifted angler. I mean, fishing, jig fishing, and all the rest. He was just all around gifted. I got to be paired with him on the St. Johns River in I think it was a super bass tournament, and it opened my eyes. We went to salt run spawning, and I thought I was decent at sight fishing, and I didn't even have a clue what to do. So I would fish it, and he said, "Are you done with that one?" I go, "Yeah." And he thought, and he put him in the live well. And I'm like, I got a lot to learn. So that's Guido. Yeah. Tremendous angler. Tremendous. So
people are going to think I'm making this up because, this is too strong of a pull next, but the very next card in the deck, Denny Brower.
Denny, golly. That's a man that I respect so much in the sport because he did it right. I mean, he truly did it right. And the way he did with, which I said earlier about Chad, the way he did it with Chad, I just admire that so much that he just sat back and said, "You're going to school." Now, this is going to college when we didn't have college fishing. And he said, "Chad, I'll do everything I can to help you, but you're going to get an education, get a degree first, and then you can come out and do what you want." And so Chad would go off to school and work hard. Then he'd come home for the summers and he'd guide every day. So he had all this experience of guiding, and then he comes back out on tour when he graduates, and he wins and he does good. Now he's chosen to go back into teaching and doing that. A lot better for family. So the life on the road, if you see the guys that were their kids, like the Robinson kids and Randy Howell, those are all homeschooled, because being on the road is a tough thing. So, but in the lanes, same type of thing. They actually stayed home and went to school, but they still had great teachers. But overall, it's a tough life. So he's chosen to be with his family, and I think I respect that so much. But I respect Denny. If it was a flipping tournament, you weren't going to win. You were looking at second or third or whatever, because he's the man.
These are still strong pulls. The pride of Cherryville, North Carolina. One Guy Aker.
I love Guy. Oh my goodness. So yeah, wow. Yeah. So Guy, and he still fishes. He still fishes, the opens and what a tremendous guy. Probably one of just the all around just nice guys that you want to meet. But in the early years, he was a spinnerbait guy and a worm guy. And I sat back and listened to some seminars that he did. I never got to be paired with him. I got to hang around him a good bit and got to know him real well. And he's just one of those guys that could make a spinnerbait talk and really get a fish into trigger him into eating it. And he's special.
Special. I mean, I don't know how many of these we're going to do. We'll do a couple more, but these pulls are incredible. These are all in a row. Larry Nixon. Dude, you're not going to. Okay, please. I wish we had the technology to rewind it. This is hocus pocus stuff. I want to hear about Larry Nixon, but I'm just going to show the viewers who the next person I pulled is right after this. This was not set up. Okay, tell me your Larry Nixon story. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to prove something here.
I believe, I'm going to tell you my Larry Nixon story, but I believe that if you look at the cards and you turn them over, it should be by Angler of the Year. There'll be a number. So Angler of the Year that year. And I'm not sure if your cards are in that order.
Number 4.
Huh?
It says number 4.
And what does mine say?
Yours is the very next card. Like, how ridiculous is that? I just literally... Number 3.
So at that year, I was probably number 3 for Angler of the Year, and Larry was right behind me. But Larry is truly, he's the best worm fisherman that ever existed. Okay. I always, the old guys did it good, but Larry was the best. And he was tremendous all around. And he was a super, super nice guy. I mean, just one of the nicest guys you want to be around. And he's the only angler that I had on my list that I said, that's a guy that I wanted to get paired with, that I wanted to fish with, and I never got to be in the boat with. So that's my miss story. The one that you missed out on was that one. And oh wow. I mean, Texas, and just and he won. I mean, he was like our all-time money winnings forever, and top of the list. And like I said, he's just, it's really cool to look at this, that you go back and you go, that guy was awesome. Now you might find one as you go back in the pack that was, a turkey or something, but no, those guys were truly, and these are the thing about those guys, every one of them that you pulled right there, they got in the sport because of the love of the sport. It had nothing to do with money. There was no money in it in the early years, but they loved the sport, and they pioneered the sport, and they drove the sport, made it what it is, and just, blazed the trail for all these youngsters that are out there today. And thanks to Ray, and thanks to Bass, and thanks to the guys that were willing to put it out there, when there really wasn't any money in it. It was surviving. It was, that's what you were doing. And by their fortitude and their strength of doing that, and then them being so good at it, then they got all the sponsors. The sponsors are what paid the bills, and kept going. And man, super guy.
Wow. I'm still blown away that we ended with you. I said we were going to pick 5. I could have set this up, but again, I'm not organized enough. You do have an ornery one next, though. Ron Shuffield's next. So you said we might come across someone ornery. Ron, get a little ornery. But I mean, I literally want to have you back on here just to pull cards. I love hearing the stories. I mean, Chet Dothit. I mean, it's what the foundation of this sport was built on, and you're a big part of that. And I thank you for just being the person that you are, man. You've always been a great friend from the very first day I met you. One of the toughest things about the split was not getting to work with you, and you know, like you said, that everything about this sport is the people, and you're one of the greatest people in this sport.
Well,
so thank you.
I feel the same about you, Dave. You're amazing at how you handle what you do, and there's not too many people that can do what you do. Stand up on that stage and know everything about everybody, and it's and remember it and keep it in line. And yeah, so thank you for carrying the torch, and thank you for continuing, promoting and keeping bass fishing at the top, because competitive bass fishing is truly an amazing sport, special sport, and I hope to see it continue to grow. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I didn't say nice things about you, so you'd say nice things about me. Here's all I'm going to say: when we go gator hunting, don't get me eating shot.
Okay. I'll make sure you come back with all your fingers and toes and hands and all that stuff.
Thank you, Shaw Grigsby. You're awesome.
Appreciate you, Dave.
Okay, so that was a wonderful conversation with Shaw, but I got to be honest, I'm still in shock over the cards of honesty. I mean, if you had written the plan, okay, we're going to go through, 4 kind of legends, and then the final guy you'll pull is Shaw Grigsby. That'd be a great plan, but there was no plan written. If you watch the show back, he starts talking about older anglers. I actually go back and reach the deck of cards thinking that'll be a fun way to finish this show. To have Shaw be the final pull is... I wish I'd like to take credit and say I'm good, but I was just very, very lucky. And lucky is a key word with this show, because I think we're all very lucky to have had Shaw Grigsby as part of this sport. He is an incredible human, both on and off the water. I thank him for his time. I thank him for everything he's given to this sport. And I can't wait to go deal with some nuisance gators with Shaw. It's going to happen. Maybe we'll make it a show. I don't know. But thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Do all those things that help stroke the algorithm. I'll see a bunch of you this week in Michigan on Lake St. Clair. Make sure to say hello. Have a great week. Enjoy being. And as always, Bob Cobb, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmasters told you to. You hear?